everyone, it's Keren here from tuppencecoloured.co.uk. Thank you very much for joining me for today's project. Before I open it and show you inside, because there is a surprise inside this card, I just want to say a little bit about why I chose to do this card today. And it's because I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to step outside my comfort zone a little bit. When I first joined Stampin' Up last year, they ran an incentive scheme at the time for new demonstrators, and if you hit certain sales targets, then you could choose a product to a particular value from the catalogue, and I was fortunate enough to hit those incentive targets, and I chose this stamp and die set as my reward. And I got it home and I thought it was lovely, and I put it on the shelf, and I never ever used it up until now, which is quite shameful really, because it was one of the more expensive bundles in the catalogue, if I'm quite honest, because I wanted to get my money's worth basically. So that was one level. I decided that I wanted to use that stamp and die set, and the other challenge was to use green. I am not a fan of green. I think the only colour of Stampin' Up ink that I have is always artichoke, which is a dark green, and I thought, right, enough is enough, Keren, you have to bite the bullet, you have to use green. So I wanted to use green, and I wanted to use this card, this stamp and die set, and I also wanted to make something that had a bit of a wow. So are you ready? Because this is what I did, and it is a pop-up bouquet card. So stay with me as I challenge myself, and I'll show you how I made this card. I'm using this stamp from the Flower Patch set, and I've got a piece of our Whisper White envelope paper, and I've mounted up my stamp onto my acrylic block, and I'm going to start with my saffron ink. And make sure that my stamp is well covered, and I'm just going to press down firmly, and because it's a photopolymer stamp, I've got my silicone mat underneath, and I'm giving it lots of time for the ink to transfer. And I'm pretty happy with that, even though we've missed a couple of patches here and there, and that's because I'm not stamping on the firmest surface known to man, and probably I've got a couple of little bits of dust in there, but I'm not going to worry about it because I'm going to come back in and overstamp it. So I'm happy with that. And I've got this die, which is from the Flower Fair framelets, which is a companion set to the Flower Patch, and you can get them as a bundle and save 15%. So I'm going to line that up with the image that I've just stamped, and then I'm going to run over to my Big Shot and cut it out. Okay, I'm back, and there it is. I've cut it out, so I can put that away neatly. Now I've got two more stamps from that same set, which are these flower centres, and I'm going to take the larger one, and I've got some pumpkin pie ink, and this is why I said I wasn't going to stress out about those little bubbles in the middle of that flower. And again, I'm not stressing too much about this one, it's just going down just like that. And the smaller centre, I'm going to stamp in Cajun Craze. I'm going to push that out of the way in case I do something silly with it, like stick my thumb in it, or even drop it down onto my table and have to recover my table. So, right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this flower, and I'm going to fold it in half and in half again. Okay, so now I've got that shape, and then I'm going to take that edge and fold it to that edge and turn it over, and I'm going to fold that edge to that edge. So now I've got that shape. And I've also got an email. Right, so I'm going to open it out, and I'm going to keep it face down because it makes it easier to see. You can kind of get less confused in the shape. And before I do anything else, I'm just going to put a little bit of my Tombow glue. Oops. Which is still going. Still haven't replaced it. And I have my scissors, and I'm going to choose one of these segments to chop out. And let me see. Yeah, I think I'm going to chop out this one. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find the segment, and there are 3 that are reasonably even, if you can see. There's a half petal on this side and there's a half petal on this side, and these lumps are about the same size. And you know what, it's not the end of the world if they don't match up exactly. And you can make this style of card just by punching out circles. You know, you don't need to do the fancy petals. I just like to challenge myself. I wonder about my sanity sometimes. I'm just putting my wet glue onto the back of that petal there, and I'm just going to bring the flower together, she says. Just going to line everything up, and again, do you know what, it's not the end of the world if the petals aren't even, because it's a nice busy pattern, so, and you aren't going to notice. So that's what the inside of the flower will look like. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make 6 more so that I wind up with 7 altogether. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I will be back in a little while. Right, I've made my 7 elements, and I have taken a little bit of time to lay them out to make sure that they will match when I come to stick them together. Now again, if you were doing a circle or a simpler shape, you wouldn't need to worry too much about that. So I'm going to mark up where I'm going to put the glue, and I'm only going to put little spots of glue. So I'm going to put one on each of the segments of that one, and on those 2, and each of the segments of that one, and just one of the segments of that one, and one of the segments of that one. So I've got a 3, 2 2s, 2 1s, and a 0. Right, and there is a definite order in which these things go together. So I've got my wet glue on my silicone mat, and I'm going to start by putting just a spot of glue on the tips of the petals. And it's very important that you keep the glue away from the main body of these elements, because if you stick them down too far, the flowers won't open up all the way. And when I was doing the prototype for this, I was like, well, you know, why doesn't it open up all the way? That's not right. What have I done wrong? Okay, so we've done that one, and I'm going to put a little bit of glue just on those two elements there, and I'm going to bring in that one, okay, and just, where is this going? This is going here, I think. Just a little spot of glue on these petals here and here, just keeping it to the tips of the petals. And this one goes in. No, that's not right. Forgot to do these ones. Okay, so that goes on top of there, and this one goes on top of there. Okay, because you always want to leave that segment open at the bottom. And just a little spot more topo, I think. Not too much. And just a little bit of glue on these last 3 petals. And for some reason, because I've put dots on them, I'm putting the glue on the dots, and really I shouldn't be, but I think we'll get away with it. Okay. Okay, so that now needs some time to get good and dry. So I will be back in a little while. I'm going to go and make the card outer now. So I've got a piece of our thick whisper white, and I've cut a 4-inch piece right the entire length of a piece of A4, and I'm going to score it at 5 1/4 and 5 3/8, and then at 10 5/8 and 10 3/4. So what I've basically made is a narrow pocket that fits like that. I want to put a magnetic closure on this card, so I'm going to put them on now before I go any further. And I've got 2 teeny tiny magnets, which are very, very strong. They're very thin, but they are extremely strong. And I'm going to start by getting a little teeny tiny piece of tearing tape, and I'm going to put that on the back of one of my 2 magnets, and I am going to get the backing paper off the tearing tape, I promise. And in the end, that was easy, just as I was at the point of giving up and going home. There we go. So I'm going to put that one in the middle there, and make sure I've got the polarity right. Now that one sits on top of it and will be in exactly the right place. So again, I'm making sure that I've got the tape on the right side, because otherwise, magnets being magnets, will not want to play with one another. Now that has got quite a strong pull, but it's not so strong that it's impossible to get apart. Okay, so I've been cutting myself some pieces of wild wasabi DSP from our DSP stack, and that piece is 3 3/4 inches by 1/4 inch, so it's just a little scrap. So I'm going to put it down with some fast fuse. Snail would probably be okay, but because I'm putting it over a magnet and there's going to be a certain amount of pressure on it, I'm going to use the fast fuse. Okay, so now it's sitting inside there, and on the front again another piece of wild wasabi, and this is 3 3/4 by, let's measure it, 3 3/4 by 5 inches. It's basically just about 1/4 inch smaller all round than the dimensions of the card. So if your card is of a different size, then you can adjust accordingly. And again, and I say this every time, the trick with fast fuse is a light hand. I did struggle with it, and when I first got it, because I was just putting too much pressure on the runner, and it doesn't need it. It doesn't need it at all. There we are. So that now goes onto the front of the card. And that now opens and closes beautifully. All right. So I stamped out another one of the flowers in the same colours, but this time I did it on the Whisper White card, and I also stamped and cut 2 of the leaves from the same set. So it's Wild Wasabi underneath, and it's Old Olive for the detail. And I was going to put ribbon on there and I forgot. Oh, never mind. Never mind. I wanted to put some ribbon around there before I stuck the actually stuck the paper on, and I forgot. Never mind. Change of design direction. So we'll have a couple of dimensionals on the back of that, and these I think we'll stick on with. I could have used snail, but the fast fuse is handy, so it'll be fast fuse. The adhesive of your choice, basically. So how do I want these? So I put one like that, and one like that, and come in with my flower. And here's the sentiment from the same set, which is stamped out in basic black, and I've cut it out with the washi label punch. So and I'm going to use dimensionals on the back of this one as well. And there's the outside of my card. Okay, so while we did the front of the card, the pop-up element has been drying up nicely, so the glue in that is all nice and dry. So I can now go ahead and complete the card, and I'm going to put some panels of the Wild Wasabi onto the inside of this card as well, just to make it a little bit more interesting and give it a bit more interest. And you know, I said I was going to put some ribbon. Well, I think I put it on the inside, so I'm going to cut a length of the Wild Wasabi seam binding, and I'm just going to wrap it around this piece of the DSP. And where's my tape? There's my tape. And I'm just using my tear and tape, just as you know, just as an ordinary piece of tape, just to stick that down. I'm just going to pull that around, put that down, and I can take the back off this and off this. And a bit of snail along the top as well, because that never hurts. And this can go into the lower part of the card, just to make sure. There we go. Yep. Okay. And I can take another piece of Wild Wasabi. Way more than I needed there. And I'm just going to tie that round. And that's going to be a nice little fake knot. Okay, so now we're ready to go and put the pop-up element in. So again with the liquid glue. I only need a teeny tiny little bit, which is just as well, because I think I've just about finished this bottle now. And where's my cocktail stick? Nobody move for a second. So I'm putting just a tiny little dab of glue just in the middle, just there, where those two elements pop out. And I'm going to close the card front up on top of it, press it down. And now the same thing. Where's the best place to put the glue? Just about here, I think. A little tiny bit there. So it just needs to be on the tips of the petals. And close that one up and press it down firmly. And now the hard part, leave it alone to dry. Right, so that's had a little bit of time to dry now, not hours, just long enough for me to, to tidy my things away after the session. And I think it's now ready for us to open up. So shall we see? So 1, 2, 3, and there it is. And I think that would be a lovely surprise card for a special someone. Now, as I said at the beginning, you don't have to use the fancy flowers. You can simply cut out circles, or you can, any kind of circular shape really. You could do this quite easily with a scallop circle die. That would look really pretty. But I wanted to see if it was possible with the dies, that I had, and I'm happy to say that I think that's worked quite well. So if you agree with me and if you've liked this video, then please do give me a thumbs up, or leave me a comment, or even subscribe to my video channel, because I will be posting more soon. I have a blog and a Facebook page, and I have a Stampin' Up shop, and you can get there from underneath this video. But meanwhile, thank you very much for joining me, and I hope I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.